Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a really fascinating journey into the history of human flight. We're not just looking at the usual story, the Wright brothers and all that.
Right.
We're digging deeper, uncovering some incredible innovators, unexpected milestones, things that really shaped our journey to the skies way before them.
It's a story that goes back much, much further than most people realize.
Exactly. So our mission here is to pull out the most important bits, the key insights from our sources, and give you a kind of shortcut to being really well informed about where aviation actually came from.
Yeah, get ready for a few surprises, I think. Those aha moments.
Definitely. Let's unpack it.
Well, the dream itself is ancient, right? You see it in myths like Daedalus and Icarus.
Sure, flying too close to the sun.
Exactly. And writers like Cervantes, Jules Verne, they explored it too. But the first recorded artificial flight, that wasn't a myth.
Okay, so this is where our deep dive really kicks off. We're talking about Archytas of Tarentum, 4th century BCE, Greek leader, scientist, inventor. Quite the resume.
He was. And he's credited with creating this thing called the flying pigeon, or peristera.
A flying pigeon? What was it?
Well, imagine this wooden bird-shaped device, self-flying, apparently tied with rope somehow.
Okay.
And here's the kicker. It used a small boiler. It generated steam.
Steam to fly.
Yeah, supposedly propelled it maybe up to 180 meters. That's like, what, almost 600 feet?
Wow. A steam-powered, self-flying wooden bird over 2,300 years ago. That's kind of mind-blowing.
It really is. And what's interesting, like you said, is that design mimicking a bird that becomes a theme, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It keeps popping up. Nature had the best model, I guess.
Pretty much. Seems logical when you think about it.
Okay, so let's jump forward, way forward, like over 1,000 years. We land in the 9th century, CE, Cordoba, Al-Andalus, and we meet Abbas ibn Firnas.
Ah, Ibn Firnas. A true polymath, inventor, scientist, chemist, physician, engineer, even musician and artist. The guy did everything.
So how did he get into flight?
Well, the story goes, around 852 CE, he saw another guy, Armin Furman, try to fly using the sort of crude parachute. It didn't go well.
A rough landing.
Yeah, sounds like it. But Abbas watched. He observed really closely, apparently learned from Furman's struggles.
So he didn't just jump in, he studied.
Oh, extensively. Looked at birds, bats, how their wings were built, how they took off, how they landed. That was critical.
Right, the landing part. So his big attempt.
Came much later, 875 CE. He was 70 years old by then.
70, okay.
He made these wooden wings, covered them with feathers, really trying to copy a bird's skeleton. He launched himself probably from a tower or maybe a hill, and he actually flew, well, glided. Stayed airborne for maybe 8 to 10 seconds.
10 seconds. In the 9th century, that's incredible for a person.
Unprecedented, really.
Yeah.
But then came the landing.
Not good.
Terrible. Broke both his legs. He never tried flying again after that.
Ouch. But even with that painful ending, did he figure anything out? What was the lesson?
He did. His big takeaway, despite the agony, was super insightful. He realized the main problem was controlling the landing speed.
Speed control.
Yeah, he noted birds use their tails for that. He didn't have a tail mechanism. And think about it, landing is still one of the most dangerous parts of flying today.
That's fascinating. A problem identified over a millennium ago is still a major focus.
Absolutely. Oh, and interestingly, some sources also credit him with inventing a form of parachute about 23 years before his flight attempt.
So wings and parachutes. Quite the innovator. Okay, from these really daring individual attempts, we move into a different kind of thinking, right? More scientific inquiry.
Yeah, and that brings us to, well, the ultimate Renaissance man, Leonardo da Vinci.
Of course. Artist, inventor, genius. Was he thinking about flight, too?
Oh, definitely. Deeply concerned with it. Though, interestingly, our sources suggest he wasn't directly influenced by Ibn Firnas. His approach was similar, though.
How so?
Observation. He watched birds, insects, documented everything meticulously. He actually concluded that human muscle power alone wasn't enough, that our weight was a fundamental barrier to flapping flight like a bird.
So he focused on designs. I've seen those famous drawings.
Exactly, those theoretical models. The ornithopter is the famous one, the machine meant to fly by flapping wings. Ornithopter from the Greek for bird and wing.
Did he build any?
He designed gliders, too. One around 1488, never built. Another in 1496 was apparently built for a test, but it didn't fly.
Why not? Was the design flawed?
It's interesting, the glider designs themselves looked plausible, maybe even echoing some of Abbas's ideas in mimicking nature.
Right.
But the sources say the construction failed. It didn't properly account for the actual physics of flight lift, drag, the forces involved. Things we understand better now, but weren't fully grasped for practical building then.
Hmm.
And some historians point out, Leonardo never tried to fly it himself. Maybe if he had, he'd have paid more attention to those crucial construction details.
Practical experience matters. So, flapping wings, human-powered flight, hitting some major roadblocks, weight, construction physics.
Pretty much.
But what if you didn't have to flap? What if you could, I don't know, float?
Exactly. That leads us to the next big leap. Lighter-than-air flight. Balloons.
Okay, balloons. Who was first?
Well, there's Bartolomeo de Guzman back in 1709. He reportedly had a successful human-carrying hot air balloon, but landing safely. Still a big issue.
Right, control again.
The real breakthrough that caught the world's attention came later, with the Montgolfier brothers in France, 1783. Their Globe Aerostatique.
That's the one you see in old paintings.
That's the one. It was the first device that really let humans fly for, a significant amount of time. It captivated everyone.
How'd it work? Just hot air?
Basically, yeah. Simple physics, Archimedes' principle. Heat the air inside the big balloon envelope. It becomes less dense than the cooler air outside, and up you go. Buoyancy.
A different approach entirely. Not mimicking birds, but harnessing physics.
A fundamental shift. But of course, hot air balloons had a major drawback.
You couldn't steer them.
Exactly. You were completely at the mercy of the wind. So that limitation naturally led people to think, okay, how do we control this?
Enter the dirigible, steerable airships.
Precisely. Henri Giffard, Paris, 1852. He built this long airship powered by a steam engine. Crucially, it had rudders and propellers.
Actual control. Did it work?
It did. He flew about 24 kilometers, 15 miles or so, at a speed of around 8 kilometers per hour, 5 miles per hour. It wasn't fast, but it was controlled flight.
That's a huge step.
Massive. And dirigibles kept being developed, used for transport, observation, even into the 20th century. They're still used in some niche ways today, actually.
Even after the Hindenburg disaster?
Even after that, yeah. That highlight the dangers of using hydrogen, obviously, but the concept of steerable, lighter-than aircraft persisted.
Okay, so while balloons and airships are developing, what about safety and other approaches? You mentioned parachutes earlier.
All right, parachutes become more common, inspired partly by Leonardo's ideas around the 1850s, and kites. People were experimenting a lot with large kites in the late 1890s, early 1900s. Less risky ways to test aerodynamic ideas.
And this experimentation feeds back into gliding, right? Heavier than air, but unpowered flight.
Exactly. The 19th century saw huge progress there. Francis Wenham, a British engineer, 1866. He figured out something really important about wing shape.
What was that?
He realized that long, narrow wings, more like modern airplane wings, what we call high aspect ratio, generate much more lift compared to their drag than short, broad wings like many birds or bats.
So moving away from direct bird mimicry again towards optimized aerodynamics.
Yes. His own gliders didn't quite succeed, but his theoretical work was vital. Then you had Otto Lilienthal in Prussia.
Ah, the glider king.
That's him, a true pioneer. His gliders flew further than anyone's before. He made hundreds of flights, meticulously recording data on lift and drag. Invaluable information.
He died in a gliding accident, didn't he?
He did, tragically. His last words were supposedly, "Sacrifices must be made." Shows the dedication and the danger.
Wow. And then there's Octave Chanute.
Right.
Yep.
Chanute, a French-American civil engineer, sometimes called the father of aviation. He took Lilienthal's work and improved on it, especially wing structures. He developed strong, lightweight truss designs. You see them in early biplanes.
Biplanes, okay.
And crucially, Chanute was a great communicator. He gathered information, published it, shared it freely. He even corresponded with and advised the Wright brothers.
Ah, the connection. So Lilienthal's data, Chanute's structures, and advice, it's all feeding into that final push.
It really is. But before we get fully to the Wrights, our sources point to some other really remarkable flights happening elsewhere that often get overlooked.
Like where?
The Ottoman Empire, Istanbul specifically.
Okay, tell me more.
There's a figure named Hezarfen Ahmed Çelebi, around 1630, another polymath type.
1630, what did he do?
He apparently built a glider, launched himself from the Galata Tower in Istanbul, and flew clear across the Bosphorus Strait.
Across the Bosphorus, that's miles. 2 miles, maybe.
About that, yeah. Connected 2 continents, Europe to Asia, in a glider in 1630.
That's astonishing. How does that compare to, say, the Wright brothers' first flight?
Well, think about it. Their very first powered flight in 1903 was only about 12 seconds, 120 feet. Hezarfen Çelebi flew much farther and longer, albeit unpowered. It really challenges the narrative.
It certainly does. Any others from that time?
Yes. Just 3 years later, his orphan's brother, Lagari Hassan Chalabi, an aviator too, he did something even wilder.
Wilder than flying across the Bosphorus.
Arguably, yeah. He built a rocket, a big 7-winged rocket packed with like 300 pounds of gunpowder.
A manned rocket in the
Yeah.
1630s.
Apparently so. He launched himself in it, flew about 1,000 feet straight up.
Okay, that's insane. How did he land?
That's the genius part. When the gunpowder ran out, he deployed wings attached to the rocket. They acted like a parachute. Came down safely into the water and just swam ashore.
So rocket propulsion and a controlled descent mechanism. That's incredibly advanced thinking for that era.
It absolutely is. It just shows you this drive to fly, this ingenuity was happening in different ways in different places, often completely independent of each other.
These stories really broaden the picture. Okay, so we have all this incredible groundwork laid over centuries, across cultures, gliding perfected, understanding of aerodynamics growing, even rocket experiments. Then come the Wright brothers.
Right. And history, as you said, often gives them all the credit, which isn't quite fair given everything we've discussed.
But they did solve something crucial, didn't they? What was their key contribution?
Control. Sustained, controlled, powered flight. That was the hat trick. Many people were getting airborne briefly, but controlling the aircraft reliably was the massive hurdle.
How did they crack it?
Their big innovation was a system for roll control. They called it wing warping.
Wing warping, what's that?
Instead of rigid wings, they figured out how to twist the ends of the wings slightly, using cables operated by the pilot. Twisting one way increased lift on one side, decreased it on the other, causing the plane to roll or bank.
Ah, like leaning into a turn on a bike.
Exactly that principle.
Ah,
Combining that roll control with yaw control, steering the nose left or right, with a rudder and pitch control pointing the nose up or down, with an elevator that gave the pilot command over the aircraft's direction and attitude.
true, three-axis control.
That was the breakthrough. It allowed for sustained, maneuverable flight. They essentially wrote some of the first practical rules for aeronautical engineering based on their experiments.
And they built their own engine too, right?
They did. Starting around 1900, they worked on powered gliders. Realized they needed a very lightweight engine. Couldn't find one suitable, so they designed and built their own internal combustion engine. Light enough. Powerful enough.
They were persistent, constantly refining things.
Absolutely. Meticulously remodeling the Wright Flyer between 1903, 1904, and 1905, making it easier to handle, more stable, more reliable. By late 1904, Wilbur managed that flight you mentioned, 59 seconds, over 850 feet.
Getting longer.
And then the big one, October 1905. October 5th, 1905. That's really seen as the moment modern aviation properly began. They flew their Wright Flyer III. It was the first truly practical aircraft.
What defined practical?
It could fly under full control, turn, circle, stay aloft for a significant duration, and land without crashing. That day, Wilbur flew about 24 miles in just under 40 minutes.
24 miles compared to 120 feet 2 years earlier. That's exponential progress.
Monumental. That flight proved it was possible. It opened the floodgates.
So after 1905, things really took off, so to speak.
Well, really. The decade leading up to World War I saw incredibly rapid development. Governments, Britain, France, Germany especially, started pouring money into aviation. They saw the potential, military and otherwise.
What kind of advancements came quickly?
Things like enclosed cockpits, better fuselage designs for aerodynamics, much more powerful engines. The V8 engine format became popular around 1910 in the US and Europe, offering a good power-to-weight ratio.
Paving the way for bigger planes, eventually airlines?
Exactly. Companies that became giants like Boeing, eventually Airbus, their roots are in this period of intense innovation sparked by the Wright's success.
So it's fair to say the modern aviation industry is built on the Wright brothers' foundational work on controlled, powered flight.
Yes, absolutely. Their concepts were fundamental.
But, and this is the key takeaway from our dive today, it's also crystal clear that so much was borrowed, learned, or built upon from those earlier pioneers. From Archytas's pigeon, Ibn Firnas's brave glide, Leonardo's vision, the Montgolfier's balloon, Lilienthal's data, Chanute's structures, even the Celebi brothers' daring flights.
It's a much richer, deeper, more global story. We've really journeyed through centuries of ingenuity, haven't we? From myths and steam power to gliders, rockets, and finally that controlled flight of the Wright Flyer. Hopefully you listening now have a much better sense of the true deep history here.
Yeah, beyond just the standard textbook version, what really strikes me is that pattern innovation building across generations, across cultures, Insights from one place or time laying groundwork, maybe unknowingly, for breakthroughs centuries later somewhere else.
It's fascinating.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other fields, what other technologies that we think we understand so well might have these hidden histories, these forgotten pioneers, these cross-cultural contributions that we just don't talk about? And what does that tell us about how progress actually happens?
That's a great question to ponder. The messy, interconnected reality of innovation.